his car and then was swept away by the water. Another two were found near a homeless camp. Nashville Mayor John Cooper.
The loss of life, once we complete the investigations, is a deeply disturbing fact, and I know that's going to inform us in how to do this better.
The weather is calmer for the next few days, but two major rivers are headed towards flood stage and beyond.
We're not out of the woods yet.
Nashville Police Chief John Drake, more than 130 water rescues happened. Rob Dawson, Fox News.
Meanwhile, a major staffing shakeup at the Homeland Security Advisory Council.
Almost every member of the Homeland Security Advisory Council got a pink slip from Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. The council is made up of both the Democrats and Republicans. As Secretary Mayorkas says he'll create a new council in the coming weeks. It's possible some will be asked to return, but critics say this is a way to purge Republican voices.
That's Fox's Lauren Blanchard. Former President Trump says Border Patrol has invited him to visit the southern border in the next few weeks. This as he's calling for President Biden to restore his border policies in order to fix the situation.
We're not getting along with Mexico any longer. You have a great president of Mexico who was fantastic to me. Soldiers on our border, 28,000 soldiers, stop people from coming in.
Trump speaking with Fox's Justice with Judge Janine. America is listening to Fox News.
The vaccine is officially here, and we aren't just talking about the COVID vaccine, but a financial vaccine at Bank Pacific. We may not be doctors, but we can help you with your financial health. Whether to take advantage of today's crazy low rates, or just a local bank that has your back. At Bank Pacific, we want to help make 2021 your best year yet. Because for 66 years, where others put branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
We buy a homeowner's policy and never give it another thought until something happens. Life brings changes, and our coverage needs can change. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Well, the average U.S. price of regular grade gasoline jumped a nickel per gallon over the past 2 weeks to $2.94. Industry analyst Trilby Lundberg of the Lundberg Survey said Sunday that the price at the pump might be near its peak as gasoline supply evens out across the country. The price of gas has spiked 77 cents per gallon since November 20th and is at the highest point since May 2019. The highest average price in the nation right now is $3.94 a gallon in the San Francisco Bay Area. The lowest average is $2.54 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Plus, man's best friend is apparently in short supply within the ranks of the military and other federal agencies tasked with fighting terrorism and other threats.
The federal government is looking for a few good canines. A new report from the U.S. Navy's Naval Postgraduate School says the U.S. government has faced a chronic shortage of domestically bred working dogs qualified for use by both the Department of Defense and other federal agencies. Researchers say the dog deficit could create security vulnerabilities. Trained canines are highly prized for their ability to sniff out bombs, narcotics, and other threats. Rachel Sutherland, Fox News.
Meanwhile, there's a new book coming out from a member of Britain's royal family.
Kate Middleton, the Duchess of Cambridge and wife of Britain's Prince William, has announced the publication of her new book. When the UK went into coronavirus lockdown 1 year ago, the 39-year-old Duchess made it her mission to capture the everyday lives of Britons during the pandemic. She asked for submissions from the public of pictures and stories that best captured life during COVID. 100 out of 31,000 submissions were chosen for the book. The result is called Hold Still, a portrait of our nation in 2020. Along with the tragic tales of friends and family members lost to the virus, Kate wanted to highlight, quote, the incredible acts of kindness and how together we adapted to a new normal. Karen McHugh, Fox News.
I'm Mary Corsetti, and this is Fox News.
Subway's got your flavorful fresh choices this Lenten season. Sink your teeth into the succulent goodness of Subway's shrimp and guacamole spinach wrap, or go plant-based with Subway's crisp on the outside and generously spiced on the inside veggie patty, or enjoy the classic tuna sub, made with 100% wild-caught tuna, all made with freshly baked breads and topped with garden-fresh vegetables. Get them today at any of Subway's convenient locations. Subway, make it what you want.
Half a day. This is Jade Uggan from Security Title, and in celebration of Tomorrow Month, here is a tip on dealing with your land. You might be thinking of giving part of your property to your child or another family member. Once you have subdivided the property and recorded the map, you will also need to record the deed transferring the title. Just drawing the map is not enough to make sure they actually own the land. Protehi I Tanonmu. When it comes to your family land, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
76 Circle K, the Subaki Tower, and Spa Ayalam bring you another staycation. We are celebrating Mom and all she does. Win a 2-night stay at the luxurious Subaki Tower, get pampered by Spa Ayalam, and enjoy a delicious lunch and dinner at Casa Oceano. All you have to do is purchase $35 or more in 76 fuel and enter to win a staycation fit for a mom. The more you gas, the more chances of winning. Visit 76circlekguam.com or any Circle K location for more information.
Sunday brunch at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro is back. Come and enjoy Mezcla's true taste of Guam. Open for 2 seatings at 10:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. $28.95 for adults and $14.95 for kids 5 to 11 years old. Call 479-2652 or 2653 for reservations.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Whew. I got here just in time, Jose.
Indeed.
It's been 70 long hours since I was able to address our international radio listening audience of tailgaters, and it's been tough. So I think I just barely made it. I was so anxious to get out that Second Amendment. But what I did, I made it. We're all set for another week. Yeah, we got 4 whole days of Tall Tales ahead of us. It's a short week this week, but at least we got 4 whole days ahead of us. Okay, so Second Amendment, I've got something here. Good news for the Second Amendment. Not really good news, but a little bit of good news. A federal court on Thursday ruled that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, also known as the ATF, cannot classify bump stocks as machine guns. I suspect that nobody on the island has a bump stock.
Or knows what a bump stock
even knows what a bump stock is, but it's a device that that is made to hook up with certain semi-automatic rifles. And if you hold the bump stock in a certain fashion, as the rifle kicks, it causes you to pull the trigger. So it sounds almost like a machine gun, like that, but you're still pulling the trigger once for every round it fires. And the assassin that killed over 50 people in Las Vegas a couple years ago allegedly was equipped with a bump stock. So that's where all of the interest in bump stocks arose.
I heard he was wearing Bermuda shorts also, so Bermuda shorts were banned, but only for a small time. They couldn't connect it.
Yeah, right. But it was a good call. Yeah. So, although very few people, as Jose points out, even know what a bump stock is, you can imagine where the left was on that. We've got to ban bump stocks. We've got to go out and confiscate bump stocks, etc. So they attempted to petition the what used to be called the BATF, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, to come up with a rule that banned bump stocks. However, pursuant to the Gun Control Act of 1968, let me see which Court of Appeals it was. The Sixth Circuit, that's like Detroit and South. The Sixth Circuit said, no, you can't do that. And this is the good news part of it. Not that we're all concerned about bump stocks, but we're all concerned about the way the judiciary handles our rights. And this is what the Sixth Circuit said. It's not the role of the executive, particularly the unelected administrative state, to dictate to the public what is right and what is wrong. Yeah. States Judges Alice Batchelder and Eric Murphy of the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, who wrote the 2-to-1 majority opinion. Granting the executive the right both to determine a criminal statute's meaning and to enforce that same criminal statute poses a severe risk to individual liberty. I'm going to read that sentence again and see if you can find a local parallel. Granting the executive the right to determine a criminal statute's meaning and to enforce that same criminal statute poses a severe risk to individual liberty. I don't want to mention the Red Queen's name, but I think you know who I mean. And the Sixth Circuit goes on to say, entrusting the interpretation of criminal laws to the judiciary and not the executive mitigates that risk and protects against any potential abuses of government power. So that's the good news out of if you want a bump stock, you can. If you have a bump stock, you can keep your bump stock. I borrowed that line from Barack Obama. Okay, let's go from there to Zemi Ikotny. And this is an editorial that ran in USA Today. This is from Raoult. We would call him Raoult Regis. I suppose the USA Today talk, he would be Raul Reyes. Yeah, in Guam he'd be Raoult Regis, is an attorney and a member of the USA Today Board of Contributors, of course. And here's the title of his editorial: Let Biden do his job. Donald Trump blamed President Joe Biden recently for the situation at the southern border. We did a lot of things, and all of that is now eroded, the former president said on Fox News. Today, they're coming in from all foreign countries. It's a disgrace. His words echoed other statements by prominent Republicans. After visiting the border last week, House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy described the Biden border crisis in quotes. Texas Governor Greg Abbott said Biden's open border policies are inviting more illegal immigration. This is blasphemy, isn't it? This line of attack from the GOP is long on posturing and short on solutions. Republican leaders are not engaging in a good faith dialogue about unaccompanied children at the border. They're looking for a good faith dialogue here. This is USA Today. Instead, they're ignoring history, reality, and the law in favor of partisan rhetoric. There is indeed a humanitarian crisis at the southwest border. The number of unaccompanied migrant children from Central America apprehended by Border Patrol agents is on the rise, with CBS News reporting that 4,200 were being held in short-term holding facilities. What did we used to call those short-term holding facilities?
Cages.
Yeah. Cages that Barack Obama built, Donald Trump got blamed for, but now have become short-term holding facilities. By law, these children must be released to the Department of Health and Human Services within 72 hours. But the government has had trouble complying with this limit. There are also bottlenecks in the system once the children are in the care of Health and Human Services, as the government is struggling to find families and sponsors to care for them. None of this is really new, as the rise in border apprehensions began more than 10 months ago, according to the Pew Research Center. Nor can the situation be blamed solely on Biden. Of course not. Who has been in office for barely 64 days. As far back as 2014, the Obama administration dealt with an influx of families and unaccompanied children at the border, just as the Trump administration did in 2019. In fact, that year was a spike in apprehensions along the southwest border, which included nearly 80,000 unaccompanied minors. Now, he's not going to talk about what Trump did about it, of course. Funny how there wasn't any Republican outrage then about Trump's border crisis, because he solved the crisis. He cut a deal with Mexico. Mexico started enforcing their southern border, and the deal was that anyone who tried to enter the United States would, or who came to the United States looking for asylum would be held in Mexico, which served as something of a discouragement for people who really didn't care about anything except getting into the United States because it's such a great country. Of course, I don't see very many people swimming south across the Rio Grande. Not very many. Borden's Republican critics like to conflate the unaccompanied children at the border with a debate over illegal immigration. This is misleading. The truth is that under international agreements and U.S. laws, these children have a right to apply for asylum here, even if they don't know why that's here. You know, I was listening to the radio where someone was saying, you know, these 3-year-old kids appear before immigration judges. They're probably asking for, you know, something to eat, not asylum. But this is so phony. They are not undocumented immigrants. Or they're not undocumented immigrants because they're not even immigrants. They are asylum seekers exercising their legal rights. So anybody who's under the 18, who swims across the Rio Grande, wades across the Rio Grande, climbs the fence, obviously he's seeking asylum. He's not just trying to break into the United States. What's happening at the border in part amounts to Biden cleaning up the mess left behind his predecessor.
All right, enough already. This is crazy.
Unlike Trump, who favored harsh policies like zero tolerance and family separations, the Biden administration is trying to humanely comply with the law and care for vulnerable children. Now, some of these children, if you go walk around the internet a little bit, you'll see that some parents are putting 5-year-olds on rafts and sending the rafts across the Rio Grande, and the kid will have a Post-it note on his shirt telling you who his parents are and where he wants to go. They're not undocumented aliens. They're asylum seekers exercising their legal rights. Unlike Trump, who favored harsh policies like legal zero tolerance and family separations, the Biden administration is trying to humanely comply with the law and care for vulnerable children. While this is no easy task, too many Republican lawmakers, it seems, it somehow amounts to open borders. Again, not true. Adult migrants at the border, and of course, at the border are routinely expelled on public health grounds, and migrants are certainly not overrunning border communities. Tell that to the folks in Del Rio, Harlingen, and a lot of the other border cities on this side of the border.
Is he talking about Canadian border? Because he's right.
Yeah. Sure, word of the new U.S. administration has probably prompted some Central Americans to decide that the time is right to migrate. These would be the ones wearing Joe Biden T-shirts, no doubt. Yeah. But Biden addressed Central Americans in an ABC News interview and told them not to make the trip. You know, all over Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico, everybody listens to ABC News. They just don't make a move without it. I can quite clearly say, don't come over. In the process of getting set up, it's not going to take a long time, is to be able to apply for asylum in place. So don't leave your town or city or community. After, you know, he's already encouraging them to come. Somebody expressed it on something I was listening to today. It's like the cops come with a search warrant and knock on the door, and the person inside said, yeah, I'll let you in just as soon as I hide the weapon. Or as soon as I hide the drugs. What's more, Biden's administration is earmarking $4 million in aid to Central America to help address the root causes of migration. It is restarting a program that allows some at-risk Central American children to live in the USA. And it has rushed FEMA agency personnel to the border to assist with processing of children. Some smart next steps would include allowing for greater transparency for the news media at the border processing. You
don't say.
Yeah, do you think? Going on. We haven't heard much in terms of potential solutions to the border situations from Republicans. They're saying, hey, go back and look at what Trump did.
Take the fingers out of your ears.
They seem to want a political crisis, so as long as it can be used to bash the president, or perhaps they would prefer a return to Trump's immigration policies, which were marked by cruelty and chaos. Consider that if all of Biden's measures were successful and migrant children were being safely processed into the United States, Republicans would likely still be complaining about open borders. Yeah, probably. Biden faces a huge challenge at the border. Now, that sentence ought to end after the word challenge. He faces a huge challenge just climbing out of the sack in the morning, if you watched his last speech.
That was painful.
GOP leaders would be wise to let him tackle the problem rather than undermining his efforts with fear-mongering and falsehoods. That's great.
Are they scolding themselves from the past 4 years?
Well, of course, the rule is that if Trump did it, it's ipso facto wrong because Trump did it. And let's see, I got a couple other articles here to deal with this, I think. Yeah, I don't have the one I'm looking for, but I have this one. Whatever you do, we're coming. Coyotes heckle senators at the border. Now, if you don't know what a coyote is, I'll tell you what a coyote is. A coyote is a canine. It looks very much like a dog, like a tall, skinny dog.
Just more mangy.
Yeah. But the coyote also describes people who smuggle people across the Mexican border into the United States, quite often for large sums, quite often in very dangerous ways, etc. So 18 Republican senators decided to see for themselves what was happening at the border. So they took a little excursion to Texas, visiting several border facilities run by the Border Patrol. The trip to the border became necessary because the Biden administration has imposed a near total news blackout on what's happening there. The administration flunky who was escorting the senators even asked that lawmakers delete any pictures, a request echoed by border officials. Not surprisingly, the GOP senators refused to come. See, that's just what this head of Trump. See, they're going to keep those pictures just to embarrass Joe Biden.
Why aren't they cooperating?
Yeah. The Washington Examiner reports those photos showed children as young as 3 years old jammed into the facilities that a guy named Brown described as the worst situation for migrants in 20 years. He earlier provided secrets with a video of migrants being held by the dozens under a bridge. In a debriefing on the tour, Brown said that one of the first stops was with border agents at the edge of the Rio Grande, where illegal immigrants typically cross. There, he said, the coyotes, who charge $4,000 to $20,000 to get migrants across. That's a pretty expensive voyage, if you've ever seen the Rio Grande. In a lot of places, it's the Rio Grande, in other words, the large river. But it's in a lot of places, it's really the creek. It's just not a very wide creek. All of a sudden, to hear from the other side of the river taunting from the smugglers and coyotes, most of it in Spanish, telling the border guards that whatever you do, we're coming. That kind of hit home in such an anecdotal way because it's one story that kind of is a metaphor of what's happening all up and down the border. This guy Brown is the guy from the Border Patrol. Quote, a big welcome sign was put out, said Brown. I think it was a political blunder. Senator Ted Cruz described seeing cage after cage after cage of children. The Biden administration has made a big show of telling would-be migrants to stay away, that the law was the law and they would be deported if they showed up at the border. But the reality is different. U.S. agents in South Texas are not expelling Central American families with children younger than 7 years of age to Mexico, according to a senior Border Patrol official who requested anonymity during a call with reporters. Some of the migrant families encountered in South Texas are being flown to other Border Patrol sectors like El Paso and sent to Mexico from there. We're still leveraging the Title 42 in other areas, the Border Patrol official said, referring to the expulsions policy, which was first authorized by Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in March of 2020. Who was president in 2020? Yeah. By Biden, Mr. Biden and Department of Homeland officials have said that while they would like to expel most Central American families to Mexico under Title 42, Mexican authorities in the state of Tamaulipas, across from the Rio Grande Valley, are not accepting young children traveling with parents. According to the Customs and Border Patrol, 86% of families processed at the border were allowed into the U.S. without being deported. Might as well take a shot. This is kind of the Jack Haddock theory of legal compliance.
Might as well.
Yeah, it's illegal, but we'll try it. If it works, fine.
It's kind of open borders.
Yeah. If it works, fine. If it doesn't, well, at least we'll know. Biden looked into the cameras during the press conference, said, quote, nothing has changed at the border. Mexico is still on the other side. That was a lie. He said most people were being deported. That was a lie. He said the surge in unaccompanied minors at the border was normal. He lied. He's allowing the release of illegal aliens into the country without giving them a court date. And he's allowing unvetted sponsors to take children from border families. I'll bet you there's a certain group of folks that really appreciate that. Biden is getting away with his lies because in addition to the media being in his pocket, he's preventing any bad news from leaking out by muzzling the press. Biden can improve the situation immensely by imposing some Trump-era policies, but better do it quickly. If the border isn't already out of control, It soon will be. Yeah. So there you go. All right. That's the daily news. Let's take a look at the Post. The Post has got a real sleeper today. Yeah, let's take a break here.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Mezcla Bistro welcomes you this Lenten season with some of your favorite seafood specials, house-made especially for you. Try our fisherman's platter, fish tacos, grilled local catch salad, spicy garlic butter shrimp, candied salmon, and even our creamy lobster patka prau pasta. Don't forget to ask about our Lau Lau Sa Island seafood purse. You will not want to miss this limited-time seafood special, open from Monday through Saturday for lunch and dinner in Agana. Call 479-2652 for reservations. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, a true taste of Guam.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Let's see. Somebody's asking here about Jeep throat. Yeah, we haven't addressed Jeep throat yet. Okay, here's the Post editorial. Thank you to Guam's 2021 Teacher of the Year finalists and other teachers who showed perseverance in this pandemic. Being a public school teacher is a tough enough job without a pandemic, without 3 models of learning, without digital barriers. But the 6 finalists of the Department of Ed 2021 Teacher of the Year Award have proven our local educators continue to go above and beyond to give students the best shot at a successful life. Well, you know, this is true, and I can't say that I doubt. I can't say anything but kind things about people who spend their lives as teachers. It is a tough job, and it's perhaps not recognized for its true value, both financially and as far as community attitudes are concerned. But that's what this editorial is about. And I'll just go straight to the punchline. On behalf of a grateful island, we wish good luck to and congratulate Michelle de Guzman, Noshista Delgado, Seferino Duarosan, Christine Giankand, Van Peter Libranda, and Benjamin Santiago. We also thank every single person who commits to being a teacher. It's a service that won't make you rich and comes with tremendous challenges in the best of circumstances. But when done correctly and supported properly, education is the best long-term opportunity for our island's families and economies. Hear, hear. We hope as the school year progresses and as we prepare for another academic term that the Guam Department of Education finds better ways to make our campuses and classrooms more conducive to learning, equip our instructors with all the things they need to make the necessary lessons stick. No matter who ends up being named Guam's 2021 Teacher of the Year, all 6 of the nominees have shown why we expect so much of this profession, because they are setting the example of what it truly takes to teach our children. Couldn't agree more. I know what it's like. I've done it myself. One of my tall tales is, I taught a GW once in a while. Once upon a time, I taught a GW, but I was kind of slow. All the kids got out of GW in 3 years. It took me 8 years. Yeah. Okay, let's go from there straight to the card. And I've got my program notes. And what are we going to start out with? What else? Steve. So, you know, you look at the history of Steve. You know, he didn't know what was cooking at Jerry's kitchen. He had some cops tell him what was really going on. But he kept on in the news, and I think that the legendary Real Joe Cruz characterized Steve as well as anyone would say, as anyone could, with Joe, the Real Joe's characteristic. It's not what Steve Ignacio said. It's what he didn't say. Yeah, he's been pretty quiet, and with respect to Jerry Restaurant, he came out with something that'll go right down there with a stitch in time saves 9, and don't count your chickens before they're hatched 7 years ago. Here's what Steve said about Jeep Throat. I have no information, even from the get-go, that there was a cover-up in this crash, even from the very beginning. He had no information. Now, those who saw Steve wandering around Jerry Kitchen did happen to know that he had these noise suppressor headphones on, the kind that don't let any in at all.
What?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. I have no information that there was. Yeah. No! Yeah, so we start out with Steve, and I said, Steve is such a striking figure that he's got a permanent place in the calendar. We go from Steve to Rory versus Ever Given. This is a pretty good one. And then, Rory's shipping expertise is once again explored. You know, Rory knew so much about shipping. That's why they hired him down at the commercial port. I'm not really positive about this, but I think Rory once upon a time told a story about when he was a kid, he had this toy sailboat that, anyhow, I'm not sure about that one, but he obviously knew a lot about shipping. That's why the Red Queen put him at the commercial port, right? And then we've got Melvin Wanpat showing us that it's really about separation. That's what it's really about. Forget all the talk about statehood, free association, whatever. And then a gentleman named Gerald Lujan sets George Stockyu straight. Yeah. Now, this is one of those where you kind of got to be around for a while, but there, familien gitetnia, you Stockyu. Lo, Gifino English Stockyu. So there's a guy named George Stockyu who about every 2 months comes on board and pulls a Samuel Betances. That is, he tells us how to think, how to act, all of the things that we really need to rely on. So this guy, Gerald Lujan, set George Stockyu straight. And then I might get to the Ninth Circuit's rule on open carry, etc. And I've still got Bavacqua versus Empty Green on the card, etc. But let's start out with more Steve. And let's see here. Where did I put that? Got it right here. I stapled it to the wrong paper. That's why I'm having a little difficulty finding it here. It got mixed up with Jimmy and Courtney. Yeah, here it is. Here's Steve's big moment. This ran yesterday and again today on Troy's website on Candid News. I'm going to go into it, but I've got someone who just walked into the green room, and if I can, I don't like to keep people waiting in the green room too long. So it's Senator Chris Duenas. Okay. Good afternoon, Senator Chris Duenas.
Half a day, Your Honor, Honorable Marine, Senator, my favorite talk show host. How are you doing today?
Doing great, Chris. I got a whole 4 days ahead of me in Tall Tales. I couldn't be happier.
I can tell. I know you're loaded with material, but I just wanted to jump into a few things. I'll call this segment Lefty Lunacy on the Border and Bringing It Back Home, Trust Me.
Okay.
So, Lefty Lunacy on the Border, you know, as you were going to Jimmy Cutney, I think the saddest narrative in watching the national debate on this issue of the border surge and the as far as I'm concerned, the absolute humanitarian crisis, is the fact that the policy from these individuals, particularly the president, the vice president, and all of the campaign on supposedly caring about our children, caring about, the children of the world, if you will. And this whole thing of the reversal of the policy, knowing that children basically have become bait, and I hate to put it that way, but it's just true, have become the bait and have become the instrument of these evildoers, the cartels and others who completely control that border, and anybody who would pass through is just kind of the insanity of the whole thing, because these children are just simply being used to pass through and be subjugated to so much destruction of their lives, possibly, as they use them for the entrance into the country, that it just completely obliterates any compassion or any possible motivation that this administration, with its insane policy on the border, could ever purport to have. I mean, could you agree with me on that?
I do indeed. When the people on the other side are using their children as pawns, and the people on this side are basically enablers, encouraging them to do it, there's no good news in this whole thing.
And when I watch Jen Psaki, I mean, I'm almost I'm infuriated. I can't even watch it for any significant amount of time, because they completely ignore the gauntlet and everything else that anyone from the border coming up, if they truly are asylum seekers, we know already, and I don't want to enumerate on this too much because I don't want it to lose the argument, but we know already that there's drug dealers, drug traffickers, there's all kinds of, there's people from other countries, there's all kinds of craziness that they're trying to allow to infiltrate the border with regards. But I want to keep to the point of the children. The fact of the matter is that you would even try to be an individual who purports to be compassionate and passionate about these children, knowing what they have to go through, talking to these border agents that were on the very boat where Republicans and other senators went down to tour that border, reported bodies floating in the water, knowing what these children are going through. I mean, you just can't sit there with a straight face and say that you really, really care about these children and all this humanitarianism, knowing what they go through and their possible demise. There's border agents that will tell you over the years on how many individuals that they have out in the desert that are unknown people that will never be claimed, that died in the desert just making that trek, but then to put front and center those children who are being used for this purpose and purport that you care about them is just insanity.
I agree. I agree 100%, Chris. But
that on its face should just be the story, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but of course we know. I have another article here that I might get into tomorrow. The law and the business behind fake news, and it explains why the mainstream media embraces fake news, and at bottom, it's of course money, but it's there's a little bit of complication there, and of course we know that the mainstream media is basically the newsletter service for the Democrat Party, which is basically the front for cultural Marxism nowadays. So none of this can surprise us. It shocks us, but it doesn't surprise us.
So I know this is not going to be the perfect segue, but I wanted to just bring it back home on a conversation that I had with our good friend Ray Gibson in the morning on The Point. And one of the reasons why I didn't bring Bill Levin forward for an override was because of the fact that I couldn't get the votes. And I'm still working on it, and I'm actually
That's a pretty good reason, Chris.
Thank you. and I'm starting to gain some ground, but the other reason is because of the fact that we are now we passed a resolution almost unanimously with one excused to enter into the case with regard to the governor's arguments that she is attempting to dismiss the emergency powers as inorganic under quarantine. More than likely because of her multiple losses, if not unanimous losses at the court with regard to the policy and how it's been implemented. What's interesting about this is that the fundamental argument really, when they went to court, was using the law and using the ability under the Chapter 19 emergency powers for quarantine as the basis. But since the courts found almost unanimously that it was being improperly administered, instead of backing up public health and trying to reinforce what their policies were, there was an abandonment of that and just saying, okay, forget it, it's inorganic and I've got ultimate power.
True.
And like I said, it may not be it may not be a great segue, and I will apologize for that, but I think the emphasis is on ultimate power and ends, whatever it takes to get to the ends, whatever means it takes to get to the end.
I hear what you're saying, Chris, and I can't resist the temptation to once again announce how stupid this whole declaratory judgment at the Supreme Court procedure is, and point out that it was repealed in the 28th, and Ben Pangilinan put it back in the 29th. It's a dumb law. And
yeah, go ahead.
And people say, well, my response is that you shouldn't put the Supreme Court between two branches of government. That's an impossible place for them. And there are other means of resolving conflicts. The governor, if she didn't like the Superior Court decisions, could have appealed, taken an expedited appeal. She could have gone for a writ. But the argument, well, it's not, the declaratory judgment is so much faster. Well, here we are, dragging along with the declaratory judgment, and now we've reset the date for hearing. So there's nothing good about it, but that's just my opportunity to get that 2 cents worth back in. So go ahead, Chris.
No, absolutely, because I just, so you segued me just to, and I'll go quickly on this one. I know we're coming on a break, but, the thing is that, so what happened was, and another demonstration of why the floor has become so fluid on the floor of the legislature and why these things are so important. A bill that was put up for override of the veto Bill 38, which passed by 11 votes, but lost 2 votes on the override. It was a bill that was about accountability. It was a bill that was going to hold directors accountable for the application review process, to make sure that there's a timely review and to make sure that we can move our economy forward. And it was vetoed, and it was had 11 votes, lost 2 votes, and wasn't able to be overridden. You know, this is the kind of thing that I'm calling on this legislature to be more cognizant of, that we cannot kowtow to executive power. We have to constantly make sure that what the legislature puts into place has to be held true. And you yourself, Senator, I mean, the $250 fine pales compared to the $1,000 fine that you've taken directors before the court and been ruled on. And if we could continue to abrogate our responsibility, just like on the national level, you know, the presidency says, forget about it, get rid of the filibuster, we got this, we got ultimate power. The legislature can never back down from its power to hold the executive on check and balance.
I agree, Chris.
Thanks a lot, and save our children. God bless you, brother.
Nice talking to you, Chris.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Tumon is back with all your mezcla favorites, like oxtail cadu, Kahlua pig and cabbage, and Chef Peter's style black stew frittata. Mezcla is ready to welcome back everyone with great service in a safe and friendly environment. Come on down and visit Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Tumon, located on the first floor lobby of the Grand Plaza Hotel. Open for lunch from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and for dinner from 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. Call 969-2652 for reservations. Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
Hafaday, this is Congressman Nicholas. If you are a small business, you may be interested in a federal program called the State Small Business Credit Initiative. This program can provide federal funds to match equity investments into your company or help you get lower interest rates at local banks. To find out more on how this program can help your small business, please contact your Guam Congressional Office at 475-6453 or at michael.sanicolas@mail.house.gov.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the Office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
Okay, so we got about 7 minutes before that big halftime show that you all come to know and love so much. And the next item on the card is Jeep Throat. However, I don't want to start it and then break for the halftime show. So if you will stay tuned, you will find out the name of the driver of the red Jeep after the big halftime show. But I don't want to start it and then bifurcate it with the show. So I'm going to skip ahead to Rory versus Ever Given. Now, what that sounds like is something like Rory not being generous. Ever given is kind of a hard phrase to get your arms around, but that's not what it is. Right now, there is a ship blocking the Suez Canal, and if you haven't seen a picture of it, go online and Google Ever Given, E-V-E-R, the word G-I-V-E-N, and there's a ship that's just sitting crossways in the Suez Canal, and it's causing great havoc as far as international shipping is concerned, because the Suez Canal is kind of one of the main streets of the world. It connects the resources of East, South, and Southeast Asia to Europe. So ships sailing from East Asia to Europe sail up the Arabian Sea through the Suez Canal into the Mediterranean, and then you're at Europe. And before the Suez Canal was dug in 1867, the only way you could get from, let's say, from Shanghai to London was to sail all the way down around the Cape of Good Hope, all the way up the coast of Africa, all the way up to London. It took a long, long time. So the Suez Canal was an engineering wonder when it was dug in 1867, and it greatly changed the world as far as shipping was concerned. Now, you younger folks out there wouldn't remember this, but in the Six-Day War in 1967, when Israel took on 6 Arab countries and whooped them all, the Suez Canal was blocked for a few years. And the fix for that was that ships did have to sail around the Cape of Good Hope. And it lasted so long that shipbuilders built humongous ships because they didn't have to worry about sailing them through the Suez Canal. So when this blockage came up, I thought maybe that's what's going to happen this time. Maybe the Suez Canal will be blocked for so long that we'll see ships sailing around the Cape of Good Hope. And of course, this is going to increase the cost of everything. It's going to increase the cost of gasoline and all kinds of things. I didn't think it was good at all. Now, I came across a little tidbit over the weekend. It's not fresh news, but this is what I learned on the weekend. Jose, I learned that the manager of the Suez Canal sent for Rory.
So Rory's going to help them remove that barge?
No. Rory was going to help them get some good press out of the blockage. Yeah.
And a survey.
Yeah, yeah. So I can imagine, Rory, they fly Rory over there, and first thing he says, well, who you got on your crew? You got anybody that committed official misconduct on your crew? Yeah, no. I don't know how well that's going to work. Yeah. And when was the last time you did a random drug test? More important than that, when was the last time you bragged about doing a random drug test? Yeah. And then have you removed any old cranes that have been hanging around for 20 years? Have you done that? Yeah, so Rory, kind of really sat down and went through chapter and verse with him to help get some good press. And then the manager of the Suez Canal said, well, you're the director of a port in Guam. Do you know anything about ships and getting them to float and helping us here? Right? No, I don't know anything about that at all. No! I don't know anything, but I can help you with your media. Is there anything else you need help with? Is there anything else? If this lasts for a long, long time, I may have to rent space. I might have to get a cabin on board the ship so that I could provide you proper media guidance during that whole time because, whether the ship floats or not, that's kind of important. Getting good press, that's where it's really at. Now, did anybody in the crew in the Ever Given ever get fired for cause? Well, did you give them piles of money and bring them back and put them back on the crew? You didn't? Well, it's no wonder your ship ran aground. I don't know how you think you can run a ship like that. Anyhow, that's Rory versus Ever Given. We'll come back to Jeepgate right after the break.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Beginning to to make headway. I'm Mary Corsetti, Fox News. Engineers have partially refloated the container ship that is wedged across the Suez Canal.
That skyscraper-sized ship that had been blocking the Suez Canal has been partially freed by salvage crews. It's unclear at this point when the canal will reopen for trade, but this is definitely a huge relief as the narrow water route accounts for roughly 12% of global trade. The chairman of the Suez Canal Authority called it, quote, good news, and says we are not finished yet, but it has moved.
That's Fox's Marianne Rafferty. The canal services firm says the ship was partially refloated after tugboats pushed and pulled while the full moon's tides raised the water level. Dredgers are also removing mud and sand around the ship. The skyscraper-sized Ever Given became stuck in the canal last Tuesday and has held up $9 billion in global trade each day. Plus, the White House is facing calls to address the ongoing issues at the U.S.-Mexico border.
The situation does continue to grow at the southern border. 18,000 migrant children and teens are now in U.S. custody. On Friday, a group of Republican senators went to the border to see the overflowing facilities and again called on President Biden to see for himself. Neither the president nor vice president have announced any plans to go. Meanwhile, almost every member of the Homeland Security Advisory Council got a pink slip from Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. The council is made up of both the Democrats and Republicans. As Secretary Mayorkas says he'll create a new council in the coming weeks. It's possible some will be asked to return, but critics say this is a way to purge Republican voices. Plus, a group of 23 House Republicans have written to Secretary of State Antony Blinken demanding answers on how the U.S. is handling the border situation.
That's Fox's Lauren Blanchard reporting. Meanwhile, a joint WHO-China study on the origins of COVID-19 says that transmission from bats to humans through another animal is the most likely scenario and that a lab leak of the coronavirus is extremely unlikely. That's according to a draft copy obtained by the Associated Press. America is listening to Fox News.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
A homeowner's policy protects much more than just your house. It also protects you against claims from someone being hurt on your property. If a visitor is injured at your place, how much are you covered for? The smart thing to do is get the answer today.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Half a day. This is Jade Uggan from Security Title, and in celebration of Tomorrow Month, here is a tip on dealing with your land. You might be thinking of giving part of your property to your child or another family member. Once you have subdivided the property and recorded the map, you will also need to record the deed transferring the title. Just drawing the map is not enough to make sure they actually own the land. Protehi y Tanonmu. When it comes to your family land, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Well, it all comes down to this, the Elite Eight and the NCAA tournament. Fox's Ryan Mayer breaks it down.
The Elite Eight matchups are set. Play begins Monday night in the Midwest region. We'll see the 12-seed Oregon State Beavers meet the 2-seed Houston Cougars with a 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time tip. Then 3-seed Arkansas meets 1-seed Baylor in South Region play for a spot in the Final Four. Tip time in that one, 9:57 p.m. Eastern. On Tuesday night, we'll see the other two regional finals. The action starts with 1-seed Gonzaga facing 6-seed USC at 7:15 Eastern, followed by 11-seed UCLA facing off with 1-seed Michigan, with the game set to start at 9:57 p.m. Eastern. Ryan Mayer, Fox News.
And Eddie Murphy was inducted into the NAACP Image Awards Hall of Fame at the organization's show that highlighted works by entertainers and athletes of color. The actor-comedian said Saturday he was very moved by the honor. He was presented the award by his longtime friend and Coming to America co-star Arsenio Hall. LeBron James received the President's Award for his public service achievements. The Los Angeles Lakers superstar was recognized for his efforts through his LeBron James Family Foundation and his I Promise School. Meanwhile, DJ D-Nice took home Entertainer of the Year. Also new tonight, another state is one step closer to legalizing sports betting. Fox's Paul Stevens explains.
Add Wyoming to a growing list of states that have already legalized or are getting close to legal sports betting. A bill that okays online sports betting clearing an important first vote last week in the Wyoming State Senate. That bill facing 2 more votes before possibly heading to Republican Governor Mark Gordon. Supporters say Wyoming residents are already leaving the state to bet on sports, while opponents are worried about gambling addiction. Sports betting is already legal in neighboring Colorado and Montana. Paul Stevens, Fox News.
I'm Mary Corsetti, and this is Fox News.
The vaccine is officially here, and we aren't just talking about the COVID vaccine, but a financial vaccine at Bank Pacific. We may not be doctors, but we can help you with your financial health. Whether to take advantage of today's crazy low rates, or just a local bank that has your back. At Bank Pacific, we want to help make 2021 your best year yet. Because for 66 years, where others put branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
Chili's is bringing you a full meal offer with 3 for Me for just $15. You get a beverage, a starter, and an entree. First, choose from a refreshing Coca-Cola or iced tea, pick a starter, then select your choice of a mouth-watering entree, like Cajun pasta with grilled chicken, ranchero chicken tacos, or the savory Santa Fe burger. Dine in today or visit chilisguam.com for delivery and to-go options. Chili's, 3 for Me for just $15. Available for a limited time. Chili's, savor the moment.
Hey! Big news! Now you can listen to The Point on radio.com. And radio.com gives you so much more. Local news stations give you what's going on in your community. Get national news from CBS, CNN, or Fox News Radio. Take a break with one of the hundreds of music, sports, and talk stations. Love podcasts? Radio.com has thousands of true crime, comedy, kids and family podcasts, and more. Listen anytime, anywhere. On your PC, smart speakers, and a variety of connected devices. Or download the Radio.com app now from the App Store or Google Play.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services.
Okay, so here we are, second half of Tall Tales today, and we go straight back to Chief Ignacio and his permanent place on the calendar. And I've got a couple of articles that ran on Candid. The first one ran, I think, on Sunday. Eyewitness and police source accounts of the red Jeep crash into Jerry Kitchen. There were 4 women occupants of the red Jeep that destroyed Jerry Kitchen, and they should have been arrested by police, according to eyewitnesses and a police source of information. Video surveillance shows the Jeep reversing out of the restaurant after impact, then trying to head out to San Antonio. I guess they got their food and they wanted to go. They didn't want to. They knew that under the COVID rules, under the Wuhan virus rules, they couldn't eat in. So they were just going to take their food and go. So they tried to escape before the police got there. And there's a little piece of information here. 4 women in the car, and at least 2 of the women have a connection to the U.S. military. A USAA military star credit card, so United Services Automobile Association, USAA. Ask anybody who's in the military service who has ever been in, and they'll tell you about USAA. So this one of the people had a credit card bearing the name of the mother of the supposed driver of the Jeep. It was found and turned into the police. And then this story says Ms. Terlahi recently was sworn into the military, causing me to say, Yeah, and then today an even more revealing story came out in Candid. Guam police officer Chris Champion, the reporting officer on the team, as you were on the scene, after a red Jeep crashed into and destroyed Jerry Kishin on February 25, wrote in the crash report that 30-year-old, here comes the name. Are you ready for this? Nakita T. Ugun. Nakita. Nakita. Nakita T. Ugun. Now, when I say T. Ugun, that doesn't mean that she's not Ugun, you know. And tomorrow, if you want to say you're tired, you say Zajisu. If you want to say you're not tired, you say T Zajisu. So it's not that kind of T. It's not T. Ugun. Nikita, who's not Ugun? It's Nikita T. Ugun.
She probably wishes she wasn't Ugun.
Yeah, probably by now, yeah. And I don't know what you can draw from the name Nakita, but it's Nakita. So that sounds a little bit Japanese, doesn't it? But anyhow, Nikita T. Ugun was the driver and registered owner of the Jeep. The report was sent to the media over the weekend. Finally. Earth to Chief Ignacio. Contrary to Senator Jose Pido Terlahi's office claim that his granddaughter, Guam police officer Janine Tetlahi, was not involved in the crash, Officer Champion wrote in the crash report that Janine Veronica Hernandez Tetlahi, 26, was in fact the rear right side passenger of the Jeep. There were two other passengers, both females. According to Champion's report, all three passengers occupied the back seat of the Jeep. Maybe this had happened before and they didn't want to run the risk of sitting in the front seat.
Maybe there was somebody in the front seat that ended up in the back seat.
Yeah. No one, according to the report, was sitting in the front passenger seat at the time of the crash. Contrary to police statements to the public that Officer Champion issued the driver a citation for imprudent driving, the crash report indicates she received a simple speeding ticket. So, you know, if you're speeding, you go over the median, you cross the other lane of traffic, you go over the curb, you go all the way through the parking lot, you crash into the front of Jerry Restaurant and drive all the way to the back, speeding. I suppose they had a radar gun right there at the front of Jerry Restaurant to clock her speed. And contrary to video surveillance of the crash, clearly showing the Jeep moving in excess of 45 miles per hour and recklessly swerving around a car at the traffic light at the ITC intersection, Mr. Champion stated in his crash report that the driver was only going 40. So this is the mental image that I have then. See, the Jeep was heading northbound, right? We found that out. Heading northbound, comes up the ITC intersection, the light is red. There's a stupid car at the red light, not knowing that red means go ahead, and three more cars can go through. So the red Jeep had to swerve around the car that stopped at the light, apparently trying to make a left turn down Paseo Antonio, Hospital Road, actually, right? And in the process, ran into Jerry Restaurant. So I must have, instead of making the turn, must have gone ahead and cut across the...
Those Jeeps turn wide.
They do, yeah. They don't have a short turning. I know that because I got one. Yeah, you want to be really careful where you make a U-ey.
Especially going 45.
Yeah. Eyewitness accounts of sources too afraid of speaking publicly. Now, what are they afraid of? Get their name mentioned on Tall Tales? They should be proud of that. Say the women attempted to flee the scene of the crime after backing out of Jerry's destroyed kitchen. Well, what else are you going to do? You back up and try to drive away before anybody sees what happened, right? The video corroborates the claim, showing the Jeep attempting to maneuver onto Challenge San Antonio before the driver realizes her tires went flat during the crash.
That was interesting because the picture of the Jeep showed it outside, not on a tow truck.
Yeah.
And it's like they must have attempted to back out.
Yeah. So we've got a couple of cross claims here. One is against the idiot who was parked at the traffic signal. He has to bear, they have to bear some of the blame, right?
How dare they?
Yeah. And then there's a products liability claim that the company that made the tires for the Jeep put such shoddy material on the road that just jumping 2 curbs would cause them to go flat. Wow. GPD investigators have this video. But GPD investigators have this video, but they're keeping it on the down low, according to Chief Ignacio. GPD investigators have this video, according to candidates inside man within the Guam Police Department. Hooray for Candid. Who provided the never-before-seen by the public footage. They know crimes were committed, he said, and the powers that be have been scrambling to figure out how to make this whole thing go away. No! Looks like it's getting harder and harder, doesn't it, Chief? The video, which Candid News obtained from a confidential police informant, is taken from an angle that makes it impossible to see whether a 5th person was involved in the crash and fled the scene, or whether the person listed on the crash report as the driver was truly the driver. Mr. Champion and other police officers and the 4 patrol cars that responded the night of the crash did not look at so much as a request for the surveillance footage before closing their investigation around 2:35 a.m. The crash happened at 1:30 a.m., according to Champion's report. Boy, you can't accuse these cops of being slow on the job, that's for sure. The officer arrived at 1:34 and began investigating at 1:40. During that time, the officers decided there were no factors to compel them to test the sobriety of the supposed driver.
I'd say they're missing Jerry's wall.
Yeah. I wonder if they serve alcohol at Jerry Restaurant. Maybe not. Maybe that's the reason. No need. They don't serve alcohol at Jerry Restaurant.
Supposedly it's delivered to Jerry's restaurant.
It's by the way, it's Jerry Restaurant.
Oh, Jerry.
There's no S in Jerry Restaurant. It's Jerry Restaurant, yeah. The time of the night, and the mere fact that the bars had reopened only hours beforehand. Just a coincidence. Mr. Champion's report even indicates the road surface was dry and lighted, and the sky was clear that night. He marked on the crash report that the traffic light at the intersection where the Jeep had recklessly swerved around the car waiting for the light to turn green was working, and there were no contributing environmental or road circumstances to cause a crash. What about the red light? That's the cause of this crash. If that light had been green, this never would have happened. At least it wouldn't have happened at that corner. It might have happened at the next intersection, but not at that one. Not even an hour after arriving on the scene, Champion dismissed the women, having made no arrests and issuing a simple speeding ticket. Roadside towing, according to the crash report, and witnesses was quickly allowed to remove the Jeep from the parking lot. That Jeep, according to sources, is at RJ's Auto in Tamuning, where several police cars are also under repair. Now, isn't that a nice coincidence? The same repair shop that repairs police cars is repairing the red Jeep. Is that just a coincidence or what? I gotta look for it. Here it is. Okay. The Jeep, according to sources, is at RJ Autos in Tamuning, where several police cars also are under repair. The video surveillance shows several people arriving on the scene in the minutes and hours following the crash. The paparazzi, no doubt. It looked like there were some high-ranking police officers there. One witness said, I initially heard that the girls were in the military. Cannot confirm whether two of the passengers of the Jeep belong to any branch of the military, but we are aware that days before the crash, Officer Janine Tetlahi, Senator Jose Pito Tetlahi's granddaughter, was sworn into the U.S. Air Force. Oh, that explains it.
Up in the air.
Now we understand. She wants to be a pilot. And we know that the red Jeep was airborne on its way to Jerry. Okay, now it all makes sense. Boy, I wish we had. Where's our Carl now that we really need it? Our Carl, how about playing the Air Force song, Off We Go into the Wild, playing that on your phone and giving us a call here so we can set the right mood. Yeah, so now we understand. On the crash report, her colleague, Officer Chris Champion, indicated nothing in the box where branch of military service is to be checkmarked. Maybe that's because they listen to Tall Tales and know how hard I am on the Air Force. Lines like, the military is a good thing for a young person to get into. It's good life experience. But if you don't want to join the military, you could always try the Air Force. Yeah. As for the reported driver, Officer Champion indicated in the crash report that she also is the registered owner of the Jeep, a 2020 red Wrangler, registered this year and insured by USAA. Boy, a brand new red Jeep. That's how you break in a car nowadays. In the section of the crash report where the reporting officer is supposed to checkmark whether a person in the military is involved, he checkmarked no. According to USA's website, in order for a person to have his or her, what's wrong with Troy here? In order for a person to have his or her vehicle insured by USAA, I guess Troy's just not woke. I knew there was something about that guy I like. To have his or her vehicle insured by USA, they must be either active, retired, or honorably separated officers and enlisted personnel of the U.S. military. Spouses and children of service members also qualify for USAA membership, and that's correct. Yeah.
This article was written by his counterpart Johnny Rosario.
That's true.
So maybe she's not woke.
Maybe she's not woke. That's very true, yeah. Oh, and there's one more. Johnny Rosario added, when asked for a quote, Johnny Rosario said to Chief Ignacio, Chief, now that this report is made public, there's going to be an awful lot of talk about cover-up here. What can you tell us about cover-up? And the chief said, I have no information, even from the get-go, that there was a cover-up in this crash. Famous words from Chief Ignacio. Yeah. Okay, so everything you wanted to know about Jerry Kitchen. You know, I wonder if well, I'll let that go for a minute, but now you know who the driver was, you know how new the car was, you know where the car is. I bet you that auto repair shop is going to become a tourist destination now. Everybody is going to want to go down there and do a selfie with the red Jeep.
Chitty chitty bang bang.
And let's see, what's the name of the repair shop? It's RJ Auto. Hey, RJ, can I do a selfie of myself sitting in the driver's seat of the red Jeep? I've got a scrapbook at home that I'm calling Jeep Gate, Jeep Throat, and I want to put it in there. Okay, so I got somebody in the green room here, probably wanting to talk about Jeep Throat. Not our Carl talking about the Air Force. Let's see who it is. It's Dr. Ron McNinch. Or Dr. Ron McNinch, we're going to break for the 7th inning stretch, so I'll see you in the center field bleachers at Wrigley Field.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
An easily overlooked part of covering our home is what's inside of it. Over time, we buy things we don't want to lose, but don't update our contents coverage. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Mezcla's true taste of Guam.
At only $28.95, enjoy your Sunday with your friends and family with their free-flowing house mimosa or house draft beer. Open for 2 seatings at 10:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m.
Let Mezcla serve up your favorite local foods. Call them at 479-2652
or 479-2653 to book a reservation. Limited seating available.
Mezcla reminds everyone to be safe and stay sanitized. Sunday brunch at Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
Okay, so I'm wandering around at the center field bleachers at Wrigley, and wonder of wonders, it's just like the movie Field of Dreams. All of a sudden, some sort of a time machine kicked in, and guess who's playing in Wrigley Field? It's the Detroit Tigers. And it's the 1930s Detroit Tigers featuring none other than the Georgia Peach, Ty Cobb. So we have a caller online here who, in certain circles, has been known as the Georgia Peach. I guess the scene in Wrigley Field foreshadowed my conversation here with Ron. Good afternoon, Ron.
Hey, happy day, Senator. Happy day, Guam. Hey, I was just wondering, if you went down there to that place where the Jeep is, I don't think they would let you sit in the seat, the driver's seat, Senator. I don't think you have a pilot's license, so I think that's a qualification.
That's true. They'd get in trouble with the FAA if they let an unlicensed pilot sit in that driver's seat, even for a selfie.
Yeah.
Good call,
Yeah,
Ron.
that's right. And also, I think there's a very simple explanation to all this. This was Jerry's Kitchen, right?
Jerry Kitchen, yeah.
Very Cajun. Well, I think they just mistook it for a drive-through. That's all it seems to be for me. I mean, that's...
Well, we understand that Chief Ignacio wanted to hire our own drive-through Jack as a consultant to help him do the accident. So it's an interesting theory, Ron.
Yeah, it's a working theory for now. But yeah, incredible. Well, Senator, I just wanted to to mention a couple of quick things. I've been following H.R. 1 very closely, as well as H.R. 5.
Can I interrupt you here for a second, Ron?
Yes, sir.
That's the next item on the card.
Okay.
And I'd really like to have you call in after I finish with that item on the card. You know, I could let you go first, but you know, no.
Actually,
Ron,
I might call back tomorrow. I'm going into a quick meeting, but
Ron, you haven't let me get to my punchline.
Okay, sir.
And that is that I'd like to let you go first before I go into the card, but you know, nobody wants to go on stage after Elvis.
That's true. Also, I might want to steal second too. So that was good. And I might have my my cleats up also.
There you go. Yeah, the Georgia Peach. Well, if you can, call back, Ron, okay?
I'll try that. If not, I'll call back tomorrow, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. The Georgia Peach. Okay, so let's go next to Melvin Wampat versus voting rights. And I've got to talk about a couple of things. I got to talk about Melvin Wampat, and I do have to talk about H.R. 1, which is as bad a piece of legislation as ever probably came out of the House of Representatives. Okay, so story on H.R. 1 that ran in the Post. Lawmakers spent a little over half an hour Monday hearing testimony on Resolution 3836, which would express support for H.R. 1, known as the For the People Act of 2021.
I heard there was a working name, the Vote Early, Vote Often Act.
Exactly, yeah. The U.S. House of Representatives proposes major voting reforms, and includes the creation of a congressional task force that will explore voting rights issues in the territories and recommend changes for full and equal voting rights for citizens living in the territories, including the election of the... Well, it's about time! You know, the Congress is fun. You know, we're tired of being second-class citizens. It's about time that we got... No. I covered this before. This isn't even smoke and mirrors. This is a classic shiny objects theory of legislation. You know, when you know that the Congress has no ability to change this at all, to do anything with it, then what you do is you create a task force. You create the task force. The creation of the task force gets you some earned media. There'll be a lot of good photo ops. You can do press releases for several weeks on your task force. And at the end, when you can't do anything, you go back and say to your constituents, you know, I really tried on that, but I just couldn't get anywhere with it. But I tried hard. All right. Melvin Wampat, the executive director of the Commission on Decolonization and president of the Department of Chamorro Affairs, urged lawmakers to consider the implications of seeking equal voting rights when paired against the backdrop of Guam's self-determination and decolonization issues. Now, I got to stop and take that sentence apart because, as I've pointed out innumerable times, self-determination and decolonization are two different things. And the Melvin Wampats of the world would have you fall into the trap that decolonization is a synonym for self-determination. It's not. But anyhow, Melvin Borja is saying, well, Melvin Borja is taking this whole task force talk at face value as though it could lead somewhere. But he's saying, if it could lead somewhere, hey, time out. you got to stop and think about this in the context of self-determination. And then he says, I am not asserting that there's no value in equal representation and access to national voting rights for Guam. Well, that's quite a mouthful, Melvin. I am not asserting that there's no value in equal representation and access to national voting rights for Guam. I don't think anyone is asserting that Guam and other U.S. territories could not benefit from national voting rights. If Guam was granted national voting rights, would that then usurp the self-determination and decolonization we have fought so long to achieve? Yeah, and that's what I mean, that he's really let the cat out of the bag here. This is not about self-determination, which he and his commission will keep telling you that three possibilities: integration into the mother country, independence, free association. So if we had full voting rights, wouldn't that mean integration into the mother country? And wouldn't that mean no sense talking about decolonization anymore? Because Guam's no longer a colony. You got representation in Congress. You vote for the president. But that would not be what Mr. Borja, Mr. Wanpat is after. He doesn't care about decolonization. The only thing he cares about is Chamorro self-determination. Go ahead and decolonize, do whatever you want, vote, I don't care. Chamorro self-determination is where it's at, and that's what our grievance politics is all about. If Guam was granted national voting rights, would that then usurp the self-determination and decolonization we have fought so long to achieve? So if we were able to go out and score more touchdowns than the other team, wouldn't that negate all of the hard work and practice that we did to win the game? Winning is the worst possible thing that could happen to us here, getting what we want. If the federal government already asserts that Guam is self-governing without these rights, what more if we are granted them? Oh, my horror of horrors. Oh, my goodness. According to Wanpat, Guam's political issues require acknowledgement of political injustice. Here we go. Yeah, you got to turn the clock back to 1521 before you even use the word statehood. Require acknowledgement of political injustice and need to be addressed at a fundamental policy level, not through another Band-Aid, like the right to vote for president and a representation. Another Band-Aid. Because we've got our grievance politics, and we're not going to quit bitching just because we can vote. That's pretty clear. And that's how Wanpat described the 1949 Guam Congress walkout and the subsequent adoption of the Organic Act. Well, the Georgia Peach here, who just rung off, read to us from Guampedia that in 1948, the Guam Congress, every single member of which was Chamorro, elected by the people of Guam, voted to send a note to the United States, please give us an Organic Act and please make us citizens. It didn't happen. And when the naval governor would not enforce a subpoena that the Guam Congress had issued against a guy named Goldstein, the Guam Congress walked out. And what was his name? Carlos Taitano, who had hooked up with a couple of news folks in Honolulu, pulled a Rory and got us some real good press on that thing. And the next thing that happened, we got an Organic Act. Now, some people would say, wasn't that self-determination? Wasn't that the people of the island of Guam, through their elected representatives, reaching out to the Congress? Yeah. But Melvin Wanpat said it was a political Band-Aid. While these garnered much attention and political action, they did not resolve Guam's political statute issues and only created another avenue for resolution, Wanpat said. National voting rights, like the extension of U.S. citizenship to Chamorros in Guam, must only be seen as an improvement and not a solution. It's not the end of the line. That's what he's telling you. Bora urged lawmakers to explore other avenues for political empowerment, but asked if the legislature adopts the resolution that language supporting Guam's self-determination and decolonization be considered. Yeah. And that's why in the program notes for today, I said Melvin Wanpat shows it's really about separation. It's not about voting. It's not about second-class citizens. It's not about, the military's overreach. It's not about any of those things. It's about separation and independence. And if you match that up with the references that we've seen to Chamorro sovereignty coming out of the separatists, what that probably means, in I'm speculating here, in Wanpat's head, is a government of Guam, a government of Chamorros, by Chamorros, for Chamorros. And if you're not Chamorro, well, convert to Hinduism and better luck next time.
Well, that's exactly the thing. There has been no answer as to what happens after.
Of course not, because it's too horrific for people to even think about. His Excellency Melvin Wanpat announced today that the tithe will be doubled. So 20% of your salary of your crops will have to be, anyhow. Okay, now I do want to spend some time on H.R. 1, which, is the best thing that the legislature could do would be to send a resolution saying, toss it in the shucks can. But before I start that, I notice I've got a couple folks in the green room who probably just want to talk about Mr. Wanpat here. So I've got another Joe. Oh, and Drive-Through Jack. Maybe Drive-Through Jack's just getting around to Jerry Kitchen. I'll have to check that out. Okay, so we'll go with another Joe and then Drive-Through Jack, and then we'll come back to H.R. 1. Good afternoon, another Joe.
Bob, so this thing about Wombat makes me think of the Million Man March, where I think they're calling for a specific ethnic group to show solidarity. I get the sense that some people are worried that is there such a thing? Is there going to be a future identity as a Chamorro? Is there going to be a Chamorro in the future, and what would that be? I think that's their incentive to go for it, but it's a slippery slope, as you say, because they say absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Well, you and I have had this discussion before, another Joe, and I'll have to say I think you're dead wrong here. That's not what it's about. It's about power. And Melvin Wanpat wants to gather that power, the power to control this island, into the hands of a single ethnic group where it's never actually been before, notwithstanding all this talk about colonization, etc. So it's not, there's some really nice camouflage, cultural preservation, protecting the ecology, ancestral remains, on and on. But really what it's all about is what I would label as Chamorro power.
I share that concern with you, Bob. I share that concern, especially if it's a specific elitist group of Chamorro power. That's a slippery slope where absolute power will corrupt absolutely. So I share that concern with you. And if Assad front for all the other stuff that touch the funny bone of people, But I agree with you. We got to be careful with that, and I would emphasize people identifying with a Judeo-Christian strong Judeo-Christian influence on whatever it is you think is tomorrow. I think that's probably one of the focuses that should be prioritized. But regarding that the Jeep crash, rather, I have two theories about that, or hypotheses on Kebab. First is she was very hangry. She was angry and hungry.
Uh-huh.
That's the first hypothesis. And the second hypothesis is as to why they crashed into the building is actually they're the A-team, and there's the only way to save the day. The A-team, they are accused of crime they did not commit.
Yeah.
Aside from driving into the side of a building. And I do have to pose a question. How, the one thing that no one has asked is, how is the food in this restaurant? It must be really good for people to crash in.
Yeah, people want to get in so badly, huh?
Just how good is their menu?
Yeah. So have you thoroughly analyzed Jeep Throat? Because it seems like something is missing there, Joe. I thought that you might have a theory that crashing the Jeep into Jerrygate was some kind, into Jerry Restaurant was some kind of protest tied to compact impact, but I guess I
yeah, U.S. citizenship for COFA countries now, right?
Uh-huh.
But I would have to say about that. This young lady is very well connected, and her connections are bigwigs. Kebab, is it Umbrella, she is a young lady, and this is all part of the Blue Shield. The Blue Cross insurance. Is there an actual Blue Shield insurance, or is it Blue Cross?
There's Blue Shield health insurance, hospitalization insurance, Blue Cross Health, Blue Shield Hospital. Yeah.
So there's another reference to the Blue Shield is to the police. They look after one of their own, right?
Could be.
So it was one of those instances, possibly the young lady that for whatever reason, maybe she was hangry, or she's one of the A team and they're trying to help her out, and or maybe she's just learning how to drive a stick shift or something. But anyway, Bob. I don't know. They're gonna let this young lady off. But I hear music, so I better let you go. Thank you for your time, Bob.
Yeah, I got to head for Churchill Downs, but it's good talking to you, Joe.
Listen to The Point. Any speaker, anytime. Check us out on your FM radio at 93.3, 104.3 HD3, thepoint.gu, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and tune in. And announcing radio.com. Download the app and hear The Point. Get the latest news, sports, entertainment, and more. On demand. Your phone is digital. Your life is digital. And we are too. 93.3, The Point.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Tumon is back with all your Mezcla favorites, like oxtail kadu, Kahlua pig and cabbage, and Chef Peter's style black stew frittata. Mezcla is ready to welcome back everyone with great service in a safe and friendly environment. Come on down and visit Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Tumon, located on the first floor lobby of the Grand Plaza Hotel. Open for lunch from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and for dinner from 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. Call 969-2652 for reservations. Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
So here we are, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky, and I've got a man in the green room who wrote the book about drive-through restaurants, who probably, if given the police report, could come up with a dynamite analysis of exactly what happened, who did what to whom, etc., at Jerry Kitchen. And he would probably be able to do that as he was enjoying his supper at another drive-through, right? Drive-through, Jack?
Precisely correct there, Bob. I'll just cut to the heart of the matter. And
the biggest problem here is that if the young lady is in the military and she's active duty, she still probably needs to answer, to the UCMJ. She probably still needs to answer to the IG or if she's in the Navy, to the JAG. What were these people thinking, If they just wrote out the report, written out the ticket, did follow the SOPs, this would have all blown over. She probably made an appearance before a judge or something and have it knocked down. But the way this thing is turning out, the way this incident is turning out, I feel sorry for the young lady because they just made her life worse. These people don't understand the ramifications of falsifying documentations. They don't understand it, especially if you're in active duty.
Maybe they want to work at the Land Trust Commission.
Well, maybe. But they did more harm than any good that they could possibly. I have no idea what they were thinking. I don't think. I feel sorry for this young lady, and it might not be today or tomorrow, but it's going to come back and bite her, and it'll probably be, she'll take some culpability, but the real culpability falls out on these people that try to cover up this sort of mess. This is, I think you've mentioned this before years ago that if you're wearing a uniform, yeah, you could get off in civil court, you could get off in criminal court out here, but you still need to answer to UCMJ. And if you think that going through UCMJ, that somehow you have a chance of beating that system, you are in a world of hurt. So I wish the young lady luck. I feel sorry for her because this isn't going away. It doesn't matter what they put in print on these forms and things like that. If her next base commander or her next section chief, if she's up for a APR review, this is just going to come back and bite her. And it should have been done clean the first time around. You should have followed the SOPs. You should have done what you were supposed to do. Doing this sort of junk does nobody any good.
Jack.
Nobody any good.
Jack, my old Aunt Florence described it to a T. Aunt Florence would be heard to say, "You can't expect to dance without paying the fiddler."
Yeah, and there's no Potomac two-steps, when it's in active duty.
Mm-hmm.
So I really, I don't know what they were thinking when they came out. They should have just followed the book on this, let her go through the system, and it would have blown over.
Well, here's what Chief Ignacio was thinking. I have no information, even from the get-go, that there was a cover-up in this crash.
Well, especially after I hear that she has insurance under the UAA.
USAA, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Try to file a claim with that. Wait a minute, you went through what? Doing what? You jumped, and there's video evidence? Oh my gosh. I have no idea what people are thinking nowadays. I really don't. I really don't. It's just going crazy now. And I really feel sorry for her because even if by the slightest chance she manages to breeze through the Gov Guam and the courts and finally, it isn't going to go well on her next duty station because there's somebody somewhere. Someone's going to dig something up, and, it's not going to be today or tomorrow. And the sad part is if it comes later on, you're still going to be held accountable for it. I've never seen an APR review or a person coming up to ranks that they did something 3 or 4 years ago, and it's, it was 3 or 4 years ago. Well, no. you failed to report it. You knew it was wrong, and you know it's a mark on you. So they should have just followed the book on this, and she would have been, she would have probably went up to court. The judge would probably say, "Okay, I understand you're going into service. You know what? I'm letting you go. Pay for the damages. Here it is." And that would have been the end of the story.
So,
but now this thing's going to follow her.
So, Jack, what drive-through are you parked in right now?
Well, I really enjoy the Tokyo Mart, and I'm just going to stop by there real quick and see if they have any of those 50% off fish deals, and I'm going to grab one. If not, it's through the McDonald's.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Bob, I would like to wish you a blessed Holy Week, and I'll pray for the girl that she comes out on the good side, but I don't think this ends well, and it's a sad thing because you weren't trying to do something good. You were dealing with consequences, and you only could do so much 6 degrees of separation from an incident before they trace it back and say, hey, this doesn't look well.
Well, we've got the finality here of the rule from the master of drive-through. So I think as far as Tall Tales is concerned, I think the verdict is in. So thanks a lot, Jack, for calling in and,
All right, Bob. Have a great week.
And ruling on that one for us. Okay, I've still got H.R. 1 here and a little bit more on Melvin Wanpat. Maybe I'll just start. See, I got about 4 minutes. Yeah, 3 minutes. Gerald Lujan writes about George Stockyou, and I explained who George Stockyou was before. His last name is spelled Eustaqio, pronounced Gita Guam Stockyou. So the headline is letter, Stockyou should live here for say and who is delegate. The March 8, 2021 edition of Pacific Daily News carried a letter by George Stockyou, who opined that Guam's delegate should do, quote, the right thing. Stockyou demanded the delegate do the noble and righteous thing and step aside. As a solicitous gesture and in an attempt to sound noble, he advised the delegate he is still young and can run again should the delegate be vindicated by the House. Now that's some really good advice. Stockyou touted his qualifications to demand the delegate's resignation by espousing he served for 12 years as the chief staff of Guam's first non-voting delegate, Antonio B. Wanpat, the grandfather of Melvin Wanpat. Not being conversant about Stockyou and Wanpat, I conducted a quick research into both men and learned that Wanpat was delegate from 1973 until his loss to General Ben Blas in 1985, which ended Stockyou's career as Chief of Staff. However, Stockyou remained a resident of Maryland, was active with the Guam Society of D.C., and is not a registered voter on Guam. In addition, as most Chamorros know, the Stockyou clan, generally an honorable and quiet clan, hails from Zotnya. Doing further research, I learned that Governor Leon Guerrero's parents lived in Zotnya, and Delegate Madeline Bordallo lived in Zotnya, in the Bordallo Mansion, and that former Delegate Robert Underwood lived at Baza Gardens, which is a part of Zotnya. Putting all these together, I concluded that while Stockyou no longer lives in Zotnya, he is an adherent to the fond saying known all over the island, Zotnya rules. Having analyzed the above, I concluded that Stockyou is a lonely man in Frederick, Maryland. He pines for the old days when he was top man among Chamorros in D.C. He's very opinionated and will not hesitate to impose his opinion over his voters, etc. So my advice to Stockhill, if you desire to install Guam's delegate to Congress, come live here and register and vote. A little bit more, but that's enough for today. Now you know the story of George Stockhill. So that's it for today. We'll see you all tomorrow.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Were rescued. The National Weather Service in Nashville said the storm caused creeks and streams to overflow and cars to be swept off the streets.
Metro is currently investigating 4 deaths believed to have been caused by the storm. Now that is shocking.
Nashville, Tennessee Mayor John Cooper says they received more than 7 inches of rain. Plus, Republicans call the escalating situation at the border a crisis, while the Biden administration calls it a challenge. This as both Republican and Democratic senators toured several border facilities over the weekend.
19 Republican senators here on Friday. They visited a facility in Donna, Texas, which has been criticized for being overcrowded, and criticism has been steady. Here's Senator John Barrasso.
The fact is there are 4,000 young people there. 1 in 10 of them has coronavirus when they finally get tested. They're not being tested until they're ready to leave the facility.
The senators tried to bring media along with them. That was denied. And sometimes when they tried to film themselves, they were blocked.
That's Fox's Steve Harrigan, and the president's chief medical advisor warns that even with more people getting COVID shots, the pandemic is still bringing new cases.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, says spikes in COVID cases are being seen nationwide. He said on CBS Face the Nation, variants are to blame for some of that. But there are other factors that Americans can control.
Spring break and pulling back on the mitigation methods that you've seen now. Several states have done that. I believe it's premature.
6 states that had mask mandates have lifted them, with several more to be ended in April. Dr. Fauci says the U.S. is seeing an average of more than 60,000 new cases daily.
That's Fox's Grenal Scott. America is listening to Fox News.